2. And what we heard yesterday morning, and then again this morning, one class combined together. And it's a lot to digest. One of the things that was questioned yesterday, compliments of Shantharupa, but we now have some maps. And the first of the maps is the state of Karnataka. And if you look closely, you can see southeast there's Tamil Nadu, due east there's Andhra, due north there's Maharashtra, and there's some other state, I don't know what that one is. Does anybody know? Huh? What is it? Some different name today? They're one entity. Really? No kidding. Okay. Okay. Historically, this southwestern coast, which lies on the narrow coastal plain of Karnataka, there's Goa down there, and Kerala, between the Western Ghats Range, you all know what Western Ghats Range is, I hope, because I don't. It's a range of mountains that runs north and south. And the Arabian Sea is also known by the name Malabar Coast. So it covers a big area. And the Malabar region is also known as Parashuram Kshetra since ancient times, or has been known. So here's a nice painting of Parashuram. Parashuram, after accomplishing his mission of relieving the earth from the tyranny of wicked kings, wanted a secluded spot for his own retirement. I don't know if he retired, but he requested the ocean for a strip of land, an extent that could be measured by the throw of Parashuram's battle axe was granted to him in response to his wish. So what did he do? He threw his battle axe, and during his flight, it covered this area, Malabar region, so it's also known as Parashurama Kshetra, for those several states, or Malabar. This terminology and connecting with maps. So here's a map that shows Udupi, they're right in the center of the map, and Malpe, which is along the coast. So we heard yesterday, we wanted to know where are these places. So here's these places. Madhvacarya, from the boat that was coming from Dwarka, etc., there's details. He received a chunk of clay or chandan, and when it opened, there were 3 deities inside. And one of the deities was the deity of Balaram, and this deity of Balaram is pictured here. It's in Malpe. You see where it is in relation to Udupi. And then there's another place due south called Yermal, and that's the second of 3 deities, the deity of Janardana, and it was installed in Yermal, quite a distance from Udupi, 20 kilometers. And then there's Udupi Krishna. So in this area, Parashuram Kshetra, 2 great acharyas appeared, Shankara and Madhvacarya. The same Parashuram Kshetra, that's why we're speaking about Parashuram Kshetra, because these 2 great acharyas appeared in this tract of land. There's a same painting as you see on the left of Shankara. Here's a similar one, Shankaracharya. And some detail, he was born near Cochin, in a place known as Kaladi. And the exact dates of the birth of Adi Shankara is not known, but it's believed around 491 BC, or the Madhvas say around 500 BC. And in Puri they have a different date, and Kanchi they have a different date, and there's different dates, so it's not really clear. However, controversy, no. Modern scholars date Shankara around 780 AD. Modern scholars. Madhvas believe this Adi, the Shankaracharya picture painted here, was around 500 BC. And they have a name for him. Their name is Mula Shankara. And they say the other one is a different Shankara. Adi Shankara. Mula Shankara and Adi Shankara. So here's a text. This is pretty much a cut and paste from Shamakund. There's a section of Padma Purana that speaks of an associate of Lord Shiva, which is different than Shiva Purana, but Padma Purana says an associate of Lord Shiva was sent by him to spread impersonalism. And they know him as Mula Sankarsana, and they have his dates. The Adi Sankarsana is a different person, two different Shankars, according to them. And the former is the one, spread impersonalism, Bhajagovinda, etc. The latter, according to the Madhvas, is a sinister person. And here's the section from Padma Purana. Mayavadam asach chastram. So there's the Sanskrit, I don't have the English. Here's the English translation. The Mayavad philosophy, Lord Shiva informed his wife Parvati, is impious, or asat shastra, or asat shastra. It is covered Buddhism. Padma Purana. My dear Parvati, in Kali Yuga I shall assume the form of a Brahmana and teach this imagined Mayavad philosophy in order to cheat the atheist. I describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be without form and without quality. Similarly, in explaining Vedanta, I describe the same Mayavad philosophy in order to mislead the entire population towards atheism by denying the personal form of the Lord. So that's the section of Padma Purana that Madhvas say, this is Mula Shankaracharya, or Mula Shankara. And they see the other one, this is the other person. Here's a reference, nice painting too. Shiva Purana, Krishna says to Lord Shiva, in Kali Yuga, mislead the people in general by propounding imaginary meanings for the Vedas to bewilder them. So two prominent personalities appearing in this same region, Purushottam, Parashurama Kshetra. So that's the section for today. What happened? I'm going to go back to where we were yesterday, hopefully, Krishna permits. And where we ended up was explaining there's some history about Madhvacarya that's found in the Mani Manjari. Mani Manjari is the title of a book, and Mani Manjari is one of two books that were written by Narayana Panditacharya. We're going to hear something about Narayana Panditacharya and his father, Trivikram Acharya or Panditacharya. But this particular book, you'll hear in a moment, it is considered quite authoritative for reasons you're going to hear shortly. So it's not something that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are accustomed to hearing, but it's quite okay. We accept it as an authoritative text. And the history of these two persons, Panditacharya and Trivikramacharya, is as follows. I didn't bring the printout. Because the printout has all kinds of details. Did you have? Keeping track of all the little pieces is a bit of a challenge. I think what I'm going to do is go to this place. Oh, look at this. You can see the thing on your screen. Okay, so what it shows on your screen, there we go. Make it bigger. Well, let me make it bigger. Okay. In the area around Udupi, this is some background about these two authors, Panditacharya Narayana Panditacharya and his father. So the history goes back. This is around the time of Madhvacarya. There was the father of two brothers. The father of these two brothers was Dikichu Subramanya Suri, a Brahmana, Advaita Brahmana. He had two sons. The elder was Trivikram Panditacharya, and he had a younger brother. His younger brother was Shankara Bhatta. So Shankara Bhatta, the younger brother, contemporary of Madhvacarya. This is just to give some background on the authenticity of what they're going to write. That's what we're doing right now. Who these people are, who these great acharyas are, thus the authenticity of the life of Madhvacarya. So one became an ardent student, disciple, and student of Madhva. So enthusiastic and so capable was Shankara Bhatta that Madhvacarya thoroughly instructed him and gave him many scriptures, because Madhvacarya was renowned for receiving and keeping and gathering and making copies of scripture. He had a fantastic library that it is said that the library burned. And so the references that Madhvacarya makes to various scriptures are not to be found anywhere because the library burned. But because of the authenticness or authenticity of Madhva, his references are commonly, at least by Vaishnavas, accepted, although they can't find the book and verify the reference. So he, Madhva, gave to this younger brother, Shankara Bhatta, many scriptures to study and make copies of and become very conversant in, because the younger brother had access to those books and the teachings of Madhva directly from Madhva. That gave access to his elder brother, Trivikram. Trivikram, Panditacharya, according to the history of that time, during his time he became the most celebrated scholar in the whole southwest region of India. He was before he became Madhva's disciple. And he had at the same time, so he wrote some texts. There were celebrated texts. You know, if they had printing presses at that time, we probably would have sold out. But, you know, it was just a popular, he was a very renowned person. He wasn't yet a disciple of Madhvacarya. But he was an amazing philosopher. There was someone in the Puri area, his contemporary, that was considered similar to him on the eastern side. He, Trivikramacharya, was the chief pundit of a king of Karsha. Kasargod, you know where that is? North of Udupi. North. In Kerala still, but north of Udupi. So he was the chief pundit of a king, some king. There was another, here's the other name, Shobhana Bhatta, on the eastern side of India, contemporary. So, Shobhana Bhatta and Trivikrama Panditacharya, just on their own, very, very renowned personalities. So, Trivikram also studied, because he was a great scholar, he studied the writings of Shankaracharya, the Advaita. And his father was an Advaita Brahmin. So he had, some exposure to that, but he was disturbed because he found many inconsistencies. Being a scholarly person, not just trying to understand what it says and follow it. He was a critical and an analytical person. Now there's a term that's introduced here that Prabhupada discusses in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we're in a little bit more familiar territory. There's a term that says there are three main categories of scriptural texts that form the foundation for anything to do with scriptural teachings. The Nyaya Prastha, specifically in Vedanta Sutra. Nyaya Prastha, right from Chaitanya Charitamrita. You want to look it up later. I don't have the reference. Nyaya, here it is. Adi 7:106. Adi 7:106. So there's Vedanta, Nyaya Prastha. There's the Upanishads, Jnana Prastha or Prasthana. And then Shruti Prasthana. And then there's Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, etc., the Smriti Prasthana. So, Nyaya, wish I had my printed out copy. Shruti, that's the Upanishads, and Smriti, Gita, Mahabharata, and the Puranas. So Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, that phrase from our teachings, Pancharatriki Vidimbina. So he, Trivikram Panditacharya, wanted to have extensive discussion, not debate, but discussion to discern the truths of these three and how do the three match, and very elevated discussion. He was eager for that. In the course of time, through his younger brother, he had access to Madhva's writings, as well as some of the library that Madhva had entrusted to his younger brother. And from reading Madhva's writing, he became intrigued. So he requested his younger brother for a meeting with Madhvacarya. They had a meeting, and for 15 continuous days, they probably, took rest at night, but for 15 continuous days, they had discussions. At the end of those 15 continuous days, Trivikram Panditacharya accepted Madhvacarya as his guru. Madhvacarya accepted him as a disciple, right on the spot. Then, Trivikram Panditacharya, apparently there was no name change when there was Diksha given. He found that Madhvacarya's writings on Vedanta Sutra were very terse, like tight and succinct. So he requested Madhvacarya, can you expand your writings on Brahma Sutra to oblige his very qualified disciple? He did that. He wrote a second commentary on Vedanta Sutra. According to this history, there are 555 verses in Vedanta Sutra, or sutras in Vedanta Sutra. And he extensively wrote 900 verse or sections commentaries on those 555. And later, one of the persons in the line of Madhvacarya wrote a commentary on that, the extended commentary of Madhvacarya. So it's very high scholarship activity. And in order to compile this extended 900 verses commenting on Vedanta Sutra, according to history, Madhvacarya had four very qualified disciples. And he brought them in one by one, and he would instruct them extensively on one at a time, on 2 or 3 verses, and then they went to a separate place, and immediately the second one came to hear the next 2 or 3 verses, and they went to a separate place to put it all together. They had no recording devices, they just had good memories, and they wrote it all down, and in this way, he did it very efficiently. For secretaries, vastly learned, that could reproduce everything that he had said. That was the technology of the time. It was intelligence and good memories. Then later, Jayatirtha, in the line of Madhvacarya, wrote extensive commentary on those 900 verses. The 900 verses, or 900 sections of his commentary, is called Anu Vyakhyanam Yakyana. Nyaya, Yakyana. Because it was considered, this is Nyaya Prasthan. You're familiar with that term, yes? Nyaya Prasthan, Shruti Prasthan, Smriti Prasthan. So it's called Prasthan Traya. And the foundation of establishing truth must rest upon those three. That was the standard. Still the standard. Then something very interesting happened. Madhvacarya received his three deities chronologically later. And then he was worshipping his deity of Krishna. He had composed 12 stotras, prayers, glorifying Krishna deity. And while he was worshipping the deity, it became tradition that persons outside of the deity room would recite again and again 2 or 3 of the prayers. Apparently they weren't short prayers, they were some comprehensive prayers. And they would recite them. And then when the deity worship was completed, the door would open. And that was a standard procedure for quite some time. One particular day, the door didn't open. And it didn't open, and so the disciples who were outside became worried. Maybe there was some problem, some mishap. So they requested Trivikram, Panditacharya, to see if everything's okay behind that door. And so he did so. He opened the door. And what he saw was quite astonishing. I want to read it because I want to get it right. He saw Hanuman worshipping Lord Ram, Bhima worshipping Krishna, and Madhva worshipping Vyasadeva inside the altar. It was big news. And following that experience, Trivikram Panditacharya began composing a set of prayers, Hari Vayu Stuti, glorifying Vayu, Madhvacharya, Hanuman, and Bhima. After he completed it, he presented it to Madhvacharya, who said, "This is not appropriate. You have to have some prayers to the nails of Lord Nrsingadev first." So he made that adjustment. Naka Stuti. Naka, nails. Prior to and after these 4 sections. And then Trivikram Panditacharya wrote his own commentary on the original of Madhva's Brahma Sutra commentaries called Tattva Pradeep. And then Trivikramacharya had a son, and that's this Narayana Panditacharya. So both the two, the father and son, because these names are mentioned together often, Trivikramacharya and Narayana Panditacharya, accompanied Madhvacharya here and there, and they had, according to the commentary here, had ample opportunity to examine and experience the association of Madhvacharya very intimately. So they're intimately aware of his character, his qualities, his everything. And they had access to his books, his writings also. So therefore, all of this is some background saying what they wrote, specifically Narayana Panditacharya wrote these two books. Remember the names of the two books? Mani Manjari. Let's go back to the text. Mani Manjari is the life of Madhvacarya before his birth and up to his birth and things leading up to it. The whole point of all of this is there's a lot of authenticity behind these words of what you're about to hear. It's drawn from Narayana Panditacharya's writing. Now to me, for probably all of us in the room, never heard any of this before. But here we go. This is from his Mani Manjari book. After the Mahabharata war, we heard about the king of Udupi and what he did, etc. After the Mahabharata war, having realized that they could not defeat Krishna and Bhimasen, again, Bhima having very special place in the life of Madhvacarya because of their connection with Vayu. The people with demoniac mentality made up their mind with much more hatred to spoil the real meaning of the Vedas and other related scriptures, motivation, antagonizing Bhima and Krishna. Now, anyway, I'll just carry on. It's taken from this Mani Manjari text. This is the view of these two principal persons intimately connect with Madhvacarya. And there's a little drawing of Shakuni. You know who Shakuni is? Those perverted beings assembled in a secret place and had deliberations on how they could destroy the valid knowledge derived from the Vedas. Shakuni, the presiding demon for Dvapara Yuga. Don't ask me about that one. It's in his book. Having been instigated by Chanakya, the son of Charvak, represented the following which he thought, Shakuni thought, to be the main strategy. So there we see the two persons, Krishna and Bhimasen. He thought, I cannot defeat either Bhimasen or Krishna. For all devotees, Krishna is God. Bhima is the spiritual master, while Draupadi is the patron deity of all the Vedas and sacred scriptures. There's some history, which I don't know, that along with Bhima, Draupadi has some special place. Of course, she's the wife, one of the wives of Bhima. But the patron saint, patron deity of all the Vedas, Draupadi. If this knowledge is destroyed in the minds of devotees, Krishna's devotees, they, Krishna and others, will be in distress. This is how we can take revenge on them. Therefore, some of us should take birth on earth and enter the minds of scholars or commentators of the Vedas. Let the Vedas be destroyed. It's a strategy to get back at Krishna. Let the right knowledge of the Vedas be distracted by interpreting the scriptures illogically, resulting in many schools of thought, confusing the valid knowledge. Sounds pretty demoniac, right? As our aim is to plague Krishna and Bhimasen, we need not worry about atheists, as they were not accepted by theists. So we have to worry about Krishna and Krishna followers and disturb their mind. We have to worry about atheists because they're kind of not respected anyways. The scholars whose minds were polluted in this way propagated the doctrines of, so here's the three primary doctrines, Shakuni's strategy. with his other friends. Unreality of the world, or Sat Asat Vilakshana. This is from their book, Mani Manjari. A special state which is neither real nor unreal, but is different from both. Nirguna, the Supreme Being, is without any attributes. I'm familiar with that one. There is no difference between the Supreme Being and the souls. So therefore, this Dvaitavad is, well, just keeping it simple. Madhvacarya, there's a brand called Panchabheda. You've heard that one? Some have heard it. Panchabheda. There are 5. This signal with his fingers means there's distinction between the living entity and the Supreme, that's one. Distinction between living entity and Prakriti, that's another. Distinction between Prakriti and Supreme Being, that's another. Distinction between Supreme Being and nature, and distinction in varieties of nature. Did I cover them all? There's distinctions. Huh? One living entity, another living entity. Panchabheda. So that's like foundational distinctions. Strong. So that was to refute this, the Supreme Being and the souls are the same. So this is the strategy still. Even the good people of the world were gradually misled and started accepting that Vasudev, the Supreme Being, was in the embodiment of all infinite auspicious qualities like bliss, is without such qualities. In this slide, that book is in the lower right corner. Is that, you put that there, or I'm supposed to refer to something? I don't know the something I'm supposed to refer to. You tell me later. This little thing in the right corner is a signal to me that there's some reference from the text, which I don't know it. The Devatas were greatly distressed. So this is going on. There was a strategy, and the strategy was taking place. The Devatas were greatly distressed and took Brahma in the lead. Remember, this is a book by Narayana Panditacharya, representing who is Madhvacarya. And they wanted Brahma to help them alleviate the distress from Narayana, the giver of liberation. So Brahma, or it's clear, not clear, because in the painting, this is Vishnu riding on the back of a green parrot. It's supposed to be Garuda. Anyway. And there's the four-headed Brahma praying to Lord Vishnu. So it's not clear from this text. Make a note to ask for clarification in the text. So the Devatas, I see, the Devatas were greatly distressed and took Brahma in the lead. So the Devatas plus Brahma went to Lord Narayana. That's what it's meant. I'll just have to change the language. So Narayana went to Vayu. The smiling-faced Lord looked at the all-knowing Vayudev, who gives life to all creatures of the world, and who alone had the requisite capacity to do the work, and said, okay, this is Narayana or Vishnu speaking to Vayu. Oh, fair-faced one, the good people of the world, fit for moksha and devoted to me, are suffering, sorrow, due to their being unable to choose the right path shown by Vedanta. On their own efforts, they can't figure it out. They have no other succor and hence have taken our shelter and deserve our kindness. They should be made happy by your incarnation in an auspicious part of the world, in another form, and by your giving decisive commentaries on Vedanta Sutra, etc., which clearly show my infinite auspicious attributes. So that's the prelude to, from their Narayana Panditacharya's perspective, to the appearance of Madhvacarya as Lord Vayu, or the demigod Vayu. And here's a painting indicating. There's Madhvacarya with his 2 fingers raised and scriptures in his hand. There's this little icon in the lower right corner again, showing a book. I don't know what that one is, but you'll help me. This is just practice to get ready for the test run. So in the second book, there's this Su Madhva Vijaya. There's a Mangala Charana, and then a little bit, not too much, a little bit about the glories of hearing the pastimes of Madhva. So here's the Mangala Charana, and highlighted in colored letters. I offer my obeisances to Lord Narayana with the most attractive personality, who is the unique and primal fountainhead and embodiment of countless auspicious qualities. He's confronting, he has no qualities, nirguna. Like Gyan Ananda, etc., who is the originator of the world, not Brahman is, but Narayana is, of living souls and inert matter, distinction, who has the effulgence of the just rising sun, who is the Lord of Mahalakshmi, Bharati, and Mukhya Pran. Who's Mukhya Pran? Mukhya Pran is a name of Vayu, interchangeable, a name by which Vayu is known as Mukhya Pran, who controls the life force of all living beings. That's the author, Sri Narayana Panditacharya, who wrote another text, So Madhva Vijaya. So going on, he indicates there's Madhva hearing directly from Vyasadeva. After offering obeisances to Narayana, the author pays obeisances to Vyas in verse 2 as the one who is dear to the Pandavas. Vyasadeva is dear to the Pandavas, and Bhima in particular, of course, because the connection between Bhima and Madhva. And Draupadi, there she is again, the one who protected the Vedas from distortions in their interpretation by compiling the Vedic scriptures and elaborating on it, just as Sri Krishna protected the cowherds of Gokula from dangers. That's verse 2 of this second book. Sri Madhvacharya's fame, so now comes the glories of hearing about him. Sri Madhvacharya's fame illumines the 3 lokas, both inside and outside. It dispels even the internal darkness in the minds of the souls. Therefore, it is superior to the effulgence of the sun, who provides only external illumination within the 3 lokas. May it, that's the glorification of Madhvacarya, give us pure gyan and insight, leading us to moksha. Now, this is the Madhva followers' perspective on everything that we're hearing. It's a very qualified author. As Vayu, or Mukhya Pran, is Jivottama, so make sure you catch this. Vayu is Jivottama, and from their perspective. In the 9 pillars of Madhva's writings, I mentioned yesterday, even the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is in the category of Jiva, and Vayu is placed even above Lakshmi. Vayu is Jivottama and is the main preceptor of the rest of the souls. Knowledge of his greatness leads to devotion, both in him and in God, thus leading to salvation. So this is showing, the painting is showing Madhva worshipping Udupi Krishna. Almost done. And then comes the appearance. That was the glorification, the value in hearing the glories of Madhvacarya. And he likes glorifying Madhvacarya. He likes moksha. So here's a little bit of the history according to this second book, Madhva's appearance. During the time when the Devatas were praying to the Supreme Being for Vayu's incarnation here on earth, groups of good people were filled with anxiety about the correct method of attaining redemption, as they were unable, by their own efforts, to get the essence of ageless meaning and purport of the Vedanta, as determined by the Brahma Sutra. So this is folded palms, offering prayers to the Supreme Being for Vayu's incarnation. Well, their prayers were heard. At this time, in the town of Udupi, a huge festival was going on for Makara Sankranti. Now, we observe Makara Sankranti, but not like they observe it in other places in India. Very, very important. And without going into it, Makara Sankranti is a very important holiday. So in Udupi, they were having a big festival. And thousands of devotees came to what you see in the painting or the photo here is the Ananteshwara temple, to be together for this auspicious event. Suddenly, amidst the crowd, a dull-looking man, appearing possessed, climbed the flag pillar at the entrance of the Ananteshwara temple. Then, in a bizarre fashion, he started to dance. Now, how do you dance on a flag pillar? But that's what it says. And shout in a deranged manner. When he had captured the attention of the whole town, his mood changed. Actually, it was revealed that the dullard had become possessed by Lord Ananteshwara to announce the following message. All of our difficulties are going to be taken care of because Vayu is going to appear as Madhvacarya. Mukhya Pran is one of the names that Madhvacarya was known as, Mukhya Pran. The incarnation of Lord Vayudev, the great devotee of Lord Vishnu, will appear here in Udupi. Not exactly here in Udupi, but close by. in a very short time to smash all impersonalist philosophies and reestablish the loving service in full attributes to the personal form of Lord Vishnu. This devotee himself is possessing 6 wonderful qualities, the glories of Bhagavan, and who is none other than Bhagavan Vayu. No longer will any soft-hearted devotee have to hear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead be subjected to criticism and mundane views of being deaf, dumb, lifeless, limbless, formless, or was covered by illusion, by Pashandi heretics propounding Nirvishesh philosophy. Mukhya Pran will appear amongst you and will fulfill your desires for real religion. You will all be satisfied, and a new purified doctrine will be your solace. He's not dancing, but this might be the fellow. For the stately people, this is the last slide, and in particular, Madhvacarya-Part, his name is mentioned in this book, who became the father of Madhva. The news was an assurance of better times to come, as they were eager for clarity on the loving devotion to the Supreme. It's a lot of new information. What to speak of just before Radhastami. Quite a different mood. So here we are. Yesterday morning class and this morning class, plus all the maps and everything. This is one class in Udupi. So I wanted to spend the time before getting to Udupi to rehearse or get some of the kinks out, because to me it's very new, to you it's also new. The time spent to understand, the authoritative nature, at least, of Narayana Panditacharya and what he's writing from the Madhva perspective, represents the Madhva perspective. And just as we could say, the mood of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or intimately associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we gladly accept. We embrace fully, the teachings of Ramananda Roy and Srup Damodar, and from them, the teachings of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and these names to Madhvas don't mean anything. And there's some pretty intense assertions about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, etc., etc. So these intimate associates of Madhvacharya, they're firm believers in everything that's in this text. It's not just a false eulogy or some exaggeration, it's their conviction. No, just visiting the topic from yesterday, because I'm sure it's going to come up when we get there. How do we process all this? We process it with respect. We're in Madhvacharya's line, and these are authoritative representatives of Madhvacharya's line. And they're representing their view, or the Madhva view, of all these events. I mean, I don't know if any of you have had a question. I had a question. How do we understand Madhvacharya was the son of Vayu, or had connection with Vayu? Because with Hanuman, no problem. With Bhima, no problem. Madhva? Ever wondered that one? I used to wonder that one, I never got an answer. Didn't stop wondering. So this is at least the Madhva's perspective of the connection. No, it doesn't exactly say, is he an angsa of Vayu or anything. The son of Madhvacarya-Part, but not an ordinary being. Being the son of Madhvacarya-Part, he's not an ordinary being from their perspective. He's an incarnation of Vayu, or an angsa of Vayu, or some other way of understanding his position. And he did what he did. He had, like Hanuman had powers, Madhva had powers. And there's past times where he exhibited those powers, and it was very surprising to some people. Like, it didn't come out of the altar when he was dressing Udupi Krishna. Instead, he's there worshipping Vyasadeva on the altar, along with Hanuman and so forth. So these are truths that Madhva followers accept. They're new to our ears. I'm repeating myself here, but this help digest it to understand this is how they view things. And to them, it's authoritative. Now I'm going to see if I can find out something more about the Shikuni part of all of this. The ruling deity of Dwapara Yuga. That's new. And conspiring to get back at Krishna and Bhima and the Pandavas. To be continued. Any discussion?
Guru Maharaj, do the Madhva followers have a clear perspective on how they see Gaudiya Vaishnavism that's in their disciplic succession?
I don't know how they see the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I don't know. You can ask one, but I don't know. And you probably get different answers. They probably, the same respect. They're Vaishnavas. The Gaudiyas are Vaishnavas. They respect the personality of Godhead. They like Krishna. So do we. I don't know. I'm sure they are clear what the differences are. I've met, some very strong Madhva followers that are ISKCON devotees. They wear Madhva tilak. And they know what Madhva's teachings are. And they're quite comfortable with ISKCON and Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's teachings. They know the differences. They're quite comfortable. So it's respect. And just as Madhva did what Madhva did, look what Lord Chaitanya did. So they're proud of Lord Chaitanya. He's in our line. Look what he did, etc. I'm sure they have a different take on a lot of things. It's okay. But that's the best I can do. Something else?
Yeah, another question is, so Lakshmi Devi is seen below,
that's
Vayu.
my understanding. I haven't read it, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Vayu is at the top.
I guess my question is, how do they see the divine potency of the Supreme Being, or the feminine potency of the Supreme Being? When they look at Krishna, they don't worship Radha with Krishna. Then who is or what is, and how do they regard that feminine portion of God?
It's not clear to me. You have an answer to that one? How do they see Shakti Tattva, is the question, basically.
Because they focus so much on difference. The Lord is, from what I understand and heard, that the Lord is the Lord, and He has no other, like we say, oneness and difference, and so the Shakti is the oneness part. Well, the Lord and His energies, and therefore the world is also, it's different from the Lord, but also one. But Madhvacarya is saying, no, only different.
Yes.
And so therefore He cannot have energies.
Yes.
He's just the Lord.
Yeah.
So everything else has to be other elements, other tattvas. Lakshmi Devi is Jiva tattva. The world, Prakriti, is another tattva. These are separate entities that exist separate.
They're not a place for Shakti Tattva. It's these different categories. Panchabheda. That's the emphasis. So, it's just, as far as my understanding is, it's just not part of their conversation or teachings. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is in a category different than Lord Narayan.
Guru Maharaj, besides that Lord Chaitanya took permission, took initiation.
You're better without the microphone, because I can hear you much better without the microphone. Say it.
So besides the initiation of Lord Chaitanya was the line and Madhvacarya, other points of intersection during the life of Lord Chaitanya with Madhvacarya, would it be not these places that Lord Chaitanya visited when he found the Lord?
Well, you know the section. Yeah, well, okay, well, very simply. Tattvavadas. Lord Chaitanya visited Udupi, and he didn't have favorable things to say, except for the fact that they accept the personality of Godhead as the supreme. And a lot of dispute towards others was not, he didn't favor that so much. What's the term that's used in Chaitanya Charitamrita? The term, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Udupi, and there was a term in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I'm not remembering, indicating their teachings, something. You familiar with what I'm speaking about? You want to look it up? Tattvavadis? Maybe that's it. So your question is, how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regard the tree from which he was a branch?
Or other points of intersection between Vajradhana's life that we see, with the sign of Acharya, or the teaching of Madhvacarya, the temples that we're going to be visiting. Just wondering, I'm trying to again place what I'm hearing within the framework of what I know, what I'm familiar with.
I'm not sure what your question is, and I'm not able to respond because I don't understand what your question is. You want to restate it? You understand her question?
I think as she's wanting to travel through these places with you, what is it that Mahaprabhu appreciated and really strongly resonated with in these various places?
He really resonated with there's a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's a person. And that's what he really resonated with. Bhakti. And this other term is Tattvavada, that's now sinking back into my memory. And so it's the Panchabheda method of understanding truth. Panchabheda, these 5 differences. And so there's the living entity, Prakriti, and Jiva. And their teaching rests on thus Tattvavada. And there was a purpose, and it was fulfilled. The purpose that was fulfilled was restoring. It says in this text that I was reading from, that when, at the request of Keshava, Trivikram Acharya, to write commentary, more extended commentary, in the extended commentary, he refutes some of the ideas of the Vaishnavas, of Ramanujacharya, because for him, Madhva, the division was not strong enough. Vishishta Advaita, no Advaita, Dvaita. So he had discrepancy or different, because that was his assignment or that was his teaching, and he accomplished it. And that was the principal appreciation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu towards the followers of Madhva. Now, followers of Madhva, some followers of Madhva, Baladev Vidyabhusan became initiated in the Madhva line, and when he traveled to Puri, he jumped ship, or he morphed, or he became inspired by the bhakti message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then migrated to Vrindavan and became the author of our Sampradaya's commentary, having the credential of knowing thoroughly. Anyway, so we can take some. Quite possibly, there's similar biographical information from the Madhva line. People that were part of this became part of that, or something like that. But there's differences. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially appreciated, and that therefore received Diksha from that line. It's very strong. The Supreme is a person, not impersonal. Guna, not nirguna. You found something.
Shyamakund Prabhu also shared some things regarding the position of Lakshmi Devi in relation to Vayu. Lakshmi is in the category of dependent real.
What Lakshmi is in the category of?
Dependent real.
Dependent? Dependent jiva. A real jiva. Real jiva. A real dependent jiva. There's some other ones? Untouched by Maya, yes.
Jivas are also real dependent, but touched by Maya.
But touched by Maya. Ah, yes.
Vayu is the category of jivas who are touched by Maya.
Oh.
Or slightly touched by Maya.
Slightly touched by Maya.
And then the Vayu and all the dependent reals, they worship Lakshmi Narayana, as Lakshmi is the foremost of the dependent reals.
Foremost of the?
Dependent reals.
Dependent real jivas. Foremost. Untouched by Maya.
And Narayana is independent.
Yeah. Okay. What he just reported, this is Shyamakund, that resonates with what I recall hearing from Hari Parsha's seminar. There's one independent, and then there's a real dependent, untouched by Maya, and then there's a real dependent, touched by Maya, the top of the totem pole is Vayu. Yes?
And there are Sanskrit words that for dependent real, not touched by Maya.
Really?
Sanskrit word is dukkha asrishta.
Okay.
And touched by Maya, dukkha asrishta.
Okay, so that's liberated and conditioned. Sanskrit terms. More?
And from Chaitanya Charitamrita,
Tattvavada.
the reference is Madhya Lila, chapter 9, verse 277. The Lord Chaitanya tells that the only qualification that I see in your sampradaya is that you accept the form of the Lord as truth. So the commonality is deity worship.
Yeah, deity worship.
In the same chapter, Maharaj, text 245, it says Mahaprabhu next arrived in Udupi, the place of Madhvacarya, where the philosophers known as Tattvavadis resided. So that's confirmed, Tattvavadis. There he saw the deity of Lord Krishna and became mad with ecstasy.
Say the last part again.
There he saw the deity of Lord Krishna
Yeah.
and became mad with ecstasy.
Okay.
And the purport, it's Madhva by Narayana Acharya. Prabhupada references that and says,
References there.
yeah, and he references both Narayana Acharya and his dad, Trivikram Acharya.
Okay. I'm expecting you to say a few things.
My experience growing up in that region was that, I don't know, this kind of details about Lakshmi and Jivas, that was not the focus at least for me. It was quite obvious that Shankaracharya's teachings were very prevalent and very strong in that whole Parashurama Kshetra area. And it's interesting for me that when the demigods went to worship Vishnu and they were presenting the problem, and then Vishnu is assigning the responsibility to smash Mayavada philosophy to Vayu. And interestingly, in Guru Vayur also, it is Vayu and Guru who were entrusted with the responsibility of installing the deity which was worshipped in Dwaraka. And so, I had this feeling that there is something special about Vayu, and you can see that in Madhvacharya's personality, that he was very powerful, very strong, and he was there to defeat Mayavada philosophy. And that is the mode that I got when I went to Udupi.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Kerala also it was more impersonalism.
Mm.
And so, these Brahmanas who migrated from north and settled here in Udupi, they were also under the influence, including Madhvacharya's own spiritual master.
Yes.
Was an impersonalist.
Yes.
And he strongly refuted all the teachings of even his own teacher, and still finally his teacher became his follower there, right?
Mm.
That's what I am remembering. So for me,
We'll come to that later.
yeah, for me the interesting thing about Madhvacharya was, his strength and the way in which he defeated Mayavada wherever he went, and that was very obvious here.
Okay.
Here is the mic.
You have something online?
So this is from Apurva Prabhu from Singapore. His question is, what is the difference between Brahmavada and Mayavada? And if Brahmavadi or Mayavadi chants Hare Krishna for liberation, will they get it?
I think I'm not going to take this question because of time, and it's not really right on topic. The topic is Madhvacarya's life, so given time and topic sensitive conversation. Maybe, maybe tomorrow, maybe. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.